Hey there, my name is Ramon Huidobro, and I'm a developer advocate and head of open source at CodeSee. I'm originally from Chile, but I've been living in Austria for over 20 years now. So I speak Spanish, English, and German. And before starting in developer relations, which is this year, I was freelancing as a software engineer for over a decade. And throughout all this time, sort of one of my main motivators has been the different tech communities that I've been involved in. I dedicated quite a significant amount of my time to organizing conferences, giving workshops, and other kinds of events aimed at helping empower folks on their tech journey. A lot of this is involving education, which I'll get into in a bit. Um, but discovering these, giving talks at events, writing blog posts, these kind of led me to discover and really discover my love for DevRel. And this has more recently gotten me into developer education, which has in turn led me to start writing my first ever TypeScript course. I'm teaching a JavaScript bootcamp starting January for free, and I've also begun coding while live streaming to learn together with folks online. This has been just an extraordinary year for me, and I'm so thankful. So let's answer a few questions. What do I feel is the most important part of my job? Um, I'd say overall, I approach my role at DevRel as a responsibility to empower and help developers not only feel awesome, but also feel like they can do their work better with the tools that our company, for example, CodeSee, provides. So, as head of open source at CodeSee, my job is to seek out and connect with people. From different, potentially different open source communities and make partners out of them, um, and sort of bring in CodeSee's overall values with a mixture of my own as well. Um, Emphasizing on things like onboarding, reviewing, planning, and collaborating on complex code bases. I sought out to reflect these in the different activities that we do, especially with related to open source in my case. And my key part there, I would say, is strategizing. So I've been working pretty heavily on planning out and executing these different programs and strategies, such as during Hacktoberfest, we had a weekly show where I would get onboarded onto a fresh new code base, like never seen the code before. I did make sure that it ran on my computer, but that doesn't count. And this was a lot of fun, and it introduced me to new communities from around the world, as well as making friends, which is one of my favorite parts. But this feels like an important part too, because it spreads awareness of what we're doing at CodeSee, as well as having this overall collaborative spirit, which is something I hope to convey, with of course with authenticity. And aside from that, I'm also running lots of demos and webinars showcasing our products, which has been a consistently important part of what I do. Aside from also, spreading awareness, creating content, and that sort of thing. So, what is something I'm struggling with? One thing I would say I would struggle with is, even though a remote company, like this isn't a complaint, it's just like a minor thing that sometimes gets a little bit tricky, is the fact that I'm the only one in the EU right now, and the rest of the folks at CodeSea are in the North American time zones. So this, combined with me having come to CodeSea under a job share part-time, has been wonderful, but it does mean that sometimes, especially because it's an early stage startup and decisions have to be taken quickly, it means that sometimes if conversations are being had in the afternoon and I can't be there, I can't, deliver what I would think would be opinions based on what the strategies of as head of open source, but also DevRel reflect in that. Which is tricky to strategize around. Another thing that I struggled with is that now that I've been at this for almost a full year, it's also been a journey of discovery for my strengths and weaknesses. For example, even though I feel pretty comfortable and confident in things like strategy and awareness and having a friend, being an approachable, friendly DevRel person, I do struggle a little bit with like the bottom funnel sales side of it, especially again at an early stage startup. You kind of got to wear a lot of hats, and I noticed that this is one part, especially I wrote a blog post about this that I will link in this post. about how this affected me, especially with how to handle, for example, following up with folks on via email who perhaps don't reply, and you got to check up on them, and you don't want to be annoying, and that I found to be a little bit tricky. That I found that it's gotten better over time. Not to take these things personally. For example, to realize no, we're all just working and collaborating together, and sometimes things just don't work, and it's fine. Yeah. There's a couple things I've struggled with. So, tell us about a time you were inspired by someone or something in DevRel. That's hard to pick. I am constantly inspired by the overall spirit of collaboration and generosity from some of the people in the DevRel community, and it inspires me to want to emulate that and pay it forward, and be like that. And one such occasion that I keep coming back to is actually from this year. Before I was starting out at my first developer advocacy position, I was getting quite nervous about this and feeling a new, fresh wave of imposter syndrome, which was surprising for me because, having been developing software for so long, even though I did experience imposter syndrome, and I still do, I've developed a set of tools to help me handle it and remind myself that I know what I'm doing and that I am not an imposter. But I felt like these tools didn't really carry over to DevRel as smoothly for me. Your mileage may vary. So and we're having a conversation with this, and Joe Nash very kindly sat down with me and answered any questions I had. He just like a little session to just talk about what going into DevRel is going to be like for me, and how I'm feeling and what I'm nervous about. I realized that I was quite nervous about education, in particular teaching. I'd been teaching kids for years, but I never really thought about teaching in the context of DevRel. So and he very kindly and very patiently answered any questions I had and dispelled some myths, as well as pointed me in the right direction. He made me feel a lot better that what I was doing was, at least the way I was thinking, was in the right direction. And he suggested a bunch of really great resources, which I will link in this post. And this, taking the time to having taken the time to do that for me was so kind and so inspiring that I want to do it. I want, and it inspired me to be like Joe was for me, for other people. And it's that kind of thing that really motivates me. I'll also take an opportunity, if I may, to give a shout out to my colleague and brilliant head of DevRel at CodeSee, Noreen Jalal, who inspires me on a daily basis. She is absolutely wonderful and brilliant. Yeah. So, last question. What's the one change I'd like to see in DevRel? And this is also kind of a hard one. Maybe it's a little bit the imposter syndrome talking, but also because I'm still getting to know the industry and, listening to folks and the needs that they have. And one thing that I've noticed actually coming from the outside is that there's a general curiosity from folks that when they hear you're in DevRel, they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of DevRel. What is that? And they ask a lot of questions, and there's like a bit of a lack of clarity as to what DevRel is. I noticed this, of course, on the inside of DevRel as well. Lots of folks having this conversation and doing terrific work in answering that question. And one thing I've noticed is that because there are lots of different ways that DevRel is implemented across institutions and companies, that it's hard to define this. So I feel like spreading this awareness is something that I'd love to see improve, but I've also already seen improving. I was at DevRelCon this year. I actually gave a talk there, and I'm very that's a whole other story. I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity. But I learned at that conference that there are already some educational institutions that are beginning to roll out courses related to DevRel, which I think is going to be a wonderful step forward. I've also noticed, again, at DevRelCon, that there's a lot of emphasis on junior positions in DevRel, which I've noticed are kind of helping to sort of increase awareness of DevRel, as well as, bring in more diverse voices into DevRel, which I think is going to be a huge a huge piece of momentum that's going to carry DevRel forward. So when asked what to change, I'd say let's just keep doing this. Let's keep talking. Let's keep having events like this one, exchanging information openly, having kind and honest conversations. I think it's going to help us in DevRel and the tech community in general thrive. This sense of the spirit of collaboration. But on the note of DevRelCon, I really deeply appreciated that the organizers made this event take place online. Of course, there was a necessity to it, but I found that a lot of folks in my immediate circle who were interested in DevRel, and were curious about it and wanted to learn more, this was a great opportunity for them that they might have not had the conference taken place in person, because they could join from wherever they were. They didn't have to take time away from work for a conference, some of their, say, conference budget they might have not been able to justify giving that opportunity for folks to be to witness what's going on in DevRel, what people are talking about. I feel like that's pretty significant. And so one hope I have is that all of the lessons that we've gathered in the last 1.5 years of running lots of online events, that we keep, we take those lessons to heart, and when moving into the future, and we start having more in-person events again, maybe the need for online events will continue and might even expand. Who knows? Yeah, those are two things. Okay, two changes, but Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.